Church family, today is day 62, which means we are in Psalm 62, a psalm that is so rich and so good. I think it's a needed word for us today. So let me share some of the reflections that I've had as I've reflected on this psalm. Psalm 62 has been described by one commentator as the Psalm of Certainties, which is good news for us right in this time of uncertainty. It's hard to see or notice in an English translation, but in the Hebrew, 6 of these 12 verses begin with a particle that can be translated as surely or certainly or truly. And this occurs in verses 1 and 2, 4, 5, and 6, as well as verse 9. And in your mind, you can almost insert that word truly or surely or certainly. So, like verse 1, we could say, truly, for God alone my soul waits in silence. In verse 2, surely he alone is my rock and my salvation. We see this occur 6 different times, and within all of these 6 certainties, we see a contrast. We see 2 things in this psalm are certain. First is that our plans and even our riches are unstable and fleeting. But secondly, we also see that it is certain that our God is solid and secure. One thing I really love about this psalm is how much David meditates on who God is. You can see the various names and titles that God is to David, to how David attributes these things to him. We see that David sees God as his salvation, and this word occurs 4 times in the psalm. God is David's rock, when we see this 3 times in the psalm. He is his fortress, and we see this 2 other times total in the psalm. And then if you jump down to verse 5, we see that God is David's hope, his glory, and his refuge, and we see that again in verse 8 as well. This is good for us, right? To reflect on all that God is and all that he has done for us. I mean, think back about how God has been your salvation or your rock during this time, even your fortress and your refuge, and how at the end of the day we can only find our hope and our glory in him. In verses 1 to 7, this psalm is very personal. David is reflecting and rejoicing in his God, and you'll notice in verse 8, the turn comes where he moves from the singular to the plural. He goes from himself to all people. And so what are we to do? Well, I think like David, we're supposed to wait in silence before God. We're supposed to still our soul before him. But then having done that, we are to place our trust in him, and we are to pour out our hearts before him. And we can do this because God is that safe place for us. He is our refuge. He is our rock. And ultimately, we can do this, if you notice at the end, because first, our God is the only certain thing in this world that we can trust in. He is all-powerful. All power belongs to him, but he is a God who uses his power in a way that demonstrates his steadfast love towards us, and he is just. He renders to each one of us according to his works. And the good news for us is that as those who are in Christ, we know that we are judged on Christ's merits, and that his love for us is great and sure and abundant. And that in this uncertain world, we have the security of our God, and we have access to a steadfast love. So Psalm 62, in a world of instability and uncertainty, we have a God who is solid and secure.